Hello, friends, and welcome to Lesson 2 of Unit 1 of your course Business Environment and Indian Economy. Let me first give you an overview of Unit 1. We have divided Unit 1 in 7 lessons. Lesson 1 we have already done, which was on business environment and its various components. Today is Lesson 2, which is on political environment. We'll be discussing in Lesson 3 government intervention, Lesson 4 economic environment and new industrial policy, where I'll be introducing you to the NIP. Lesson 5 would be new industrial policy merits. Lesson 6 would be economic planning and reforms. And Lesson 7 would be monetary and fiscal policy. Now for Lesson 2 on political environment, the learning outcomes are: we'll look at 4 crucial parameters to consider. Number 2 would be a small case study. Then we'll talk about the political institutions in India. And lastly, we'll discuss fundamental rights and directives as citizens of India. If you remember, we talked about business environment, which was divided into 2 parts, external and internal environment. In the external environment, you had a micro environment and macro environment. In the macro environment, one of the environments we are going to discuss is political environment. So when we say political environment, there are 4 things which we discussed in detail in the last lesson. There has to be a stable and dynamic environment for businesses to grow. It is very important in a country, in a big democracy like India, where you may have multi-party system, whereas there is one party in the center and there are other parties which are ruling the state. So it is very important that the center-state relationship is understood and they are cordial for the growth of the business. Also, you need to understand the opposition parties and what they think about the freedom of doing business. And the last one is how the government is maintaining the relations with the neighboring countries and all other countries of the world. Now, in order to understand the political environment, let us take a small case study. In this case study, let us talk about 3 countries: China, Russia, and India. I'll give you some time because you might have heard about India and China a lot these days, in the past and also in the future, how these 2 countries have a very high density of population, and these 2 countries are becoming very big economic powers. Russia also is a big country and commands a very strong economic power in the world. So let us compare the 3 countries. What comes to your mind when we talk about the political environment for these 3 countries? If I take China first, in China you have a single party system wherein there is one government which is ruling the entire country, and the party is Communist Party of China. So they have a single party. That means implementation of policies is very simple. Unlike any other democracy, people may not have enough freedom in terms of doing business, but if the single party is liberal enough, then it is good for the country as a whole. And they can move as a single unit. That is the strength. If we look at Russia and if we look at the political environment, in the recent past, the political environment has become more stable in Russia, and they have taken many steps wherein, in terms of the corporate taxes and other taxes, which has been conducive for the growth of business in that country. We had seen many institutional reforms in that country. We'll try to have a graphical representation to see as to how these countries have done over the years. If we talk of India, India has multi-party system, and also you have the central government and the state governments. So as a result, long procedures to make a government decision if it is taken at the central level, and it is very hard to implement throughout the country in all the states. There has been some political instability, but for the last now almost 6 years, that instability has gone. Now it is very important to visualize this comparison through some graphs. I would strongly recommend that you go to this URL which is given at the bottom, which is heritage.org. So you can have a very good interactive map where you pick any country or two countries, compare them and compare them with the world average. So these are the parameters which are given at the bottom, which you can take. Now, for example, I have picked through this website business freedom as one of the parameters, and we are comparing from 2005 till date the data of China, Russia and India, and comparing that with the world average. And this is the parameter is business freedom. So this purple color is for the world average. For India it is grey, and pink is for China, and yellow is for Russia. Now if you look at Russia first, which is yellow, so from 2008, right, it was going down, but from 2011, from 2001, it is 2011, it has really done well in terms of the business freedom, and the business is really building up because as a result of the government's initiative of the institutional reforms which I was talking about, from 2011 they have really done well. It has been above the world average. If you look at India, 2009 there was a big decrease in the business freedom, and then it has picked up from 2014. And if you look at 2020, it has really, 1920, it has really gone up. And same is the case for China. China has not been very aggressive in terms of going up or down because of a single party system. It has almost playing between 40 and 50. That is the index I'm talking. And in 2012, right, so there was a fall from 2011 to 12, but again it has picked up, and it is from since 2012 it is going up. And if you look from 19 to 20, I think this is the only country which is doing so well. Similarly, if I go to the government integrity, and if I compare the things, so if I look at Russia, the integrity of the government has not been so great, but from 2016 it has been good, and the people, because of one man who has been governing that country and with the policies and being providing a stable government, so this is going well. But if I look at India, so from 2007 it has gone up, and then from 2009 the government integrity has gone down, but from 2014 it has gone up. So this is how you can compare. If you look at the overall score, the three countries have been going almost the same, between 50 and 55, But all of a sudden from 2016, Russia and China, they have taken a good jump in terms of the overall score of economic freedom, whereas India from 2016 has gone down and is trying to pick up with China and Russia. Now this particular graph is very interactive. I recommend all of you to play with this. Go to this heritage.org and you can autoplay, picking the years, countries, continents, comparing them, looking at any of the parameters. So overall, if you look at the overall scenario of economic freedom for all the countries, and if you look at India here, so it is between 50 and 60, whereas when we talk about Australia, New Zealand, right, and Russia, China, so they are pretty well. But if you look at America, that is again very, very good. So, but these countries, Australia and New Zealand, they are excellent, 80 to 100. So I recommend all of you to go to this website because this is a good indicator and represents all the things in a very nice way. Next, we move on to the political institutions in India. So when we talk about the political institutions, our constitution has given us three bodies. Number one is the parliament or the legislature. It is important to know in the Indian context that the parliament or the legislative is where the policy framework is done. So all the policies, anything where the country should be heading, so the decision is taken at the parliament level, at the legislative body, which is consisting of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet Ministers. Then comes the executive body, which executes those policies. So this is by the civil servants. It is your police, for example, the bureaucrats. So they are responsible for implementing the decisions of the policies made by the parliament, passed in the parliament. The third is because there can be a conflict between the citizen and the government for the policies if the representation is not right. So a citizen has the right in India to go to this body, which is the judiciary, which is the Supreme Court, which is the supreme power. Now this is the institution who takes care of any disputes, and the decision of Supreme Court is final. So these are the three bodies, and we move on to the fundamental rights. As a citizen of India, you have these fundamental rights. First is, these are different articles of our constitution from 14 to 18. So this right to equality is defined. So all are equal. So there is no disparity between the human beings, which is a great fundamental right. The moment you are born, you have the right to equality, you have the right to freedom. You are free to do anything, you are free to go anywhere. So the third is the right against exploitation. That means no one can exploit you at the individual level or at the workplace or anywhere. Number four is right to freedom of religion. You are free to follow any religion. Similarly, right to culture. So cultural rights are with you, so you can adopt any culture. Also, you have right to education, so no one can take away this right of education. And by the government in India, you get free education up to a certain level, and also it is very subsidized because the Indian Constitution says that every citizen has the right to education. The last one is that as a citizen, I feel there is something which is there in the Constitution and is not right, or I have some objections. I have the right to raise that objection and get some remedy out of that, but it has to be through the parliament only. Similarly, there are certain directive principles. When we say directive principles, these are the directives by the state government to the states. So that is why we call them as the directive principles of state policy. What it means is the center gives some principles, directives to the states that whenever the states are framing their own policies for the benefit of the state, they have to keep these directives in mind. They have to follow the principles. So generally these fall in three categories: socialist principles, Gandhian principles, and liberal principles. So number one is the socialist principles, like for the society as a whole. So these are certain articles which are given over there. So in the social circle, they cannot do certain things, and those directives are given to them, like certain communities, certain social groups cannot be discriminated, and socially, all the policies which are framed at the central level, the same principles will apply for the state government. Gandhian principles, like Gandhiji used to follow, like used to promote the cottage industry, for example. So these directives are there that in the states also, at all the levels, this industry should be promoted. Now, in India, we feel cows are sacred animals, so cows slaughtered should not be there. So that is one of the directives under the Gandhian principles. So like this, all these articles are written, which are the directives for the states to follow. Similarly, liberalization principles, which should be in line with the central principles in terms of the liberalization in the states. So that is all for Unit 1, Lesson 2. So let me summarize. We discussed about the 4 crucial parameters. We took a small case study on China, Russia, and India. Then we talked about the Indian political institutions, which we talked as legislative, executive, and judiciary. In the last one, we talked about the fundamental rights as citizens of India, and also the directive principles for the state policy. Here is a small quiz which we'll be doing in every lesson, so that you can let me know whether you have understood the things or not. So you please take out your notebooks and pen. So the first question is, China is an example of, I give you choices here, market socialism or market capitalism. Question number 2, approximately how much of world income is found outside of USA? What percentage of income is found outside USA? The choices are 75%, 30%, 40%, or 90%. Third is, which is largest country within European Union by size of population? Is it Germany, France, Poland, or Spain? I'll give you some time to write your answers. And I think you have written your answers. Please compare your answers here. So the China is an example of market socialism. Approximately 75% of world income is found outside of USA, and Germany is the largest country within EU by size of population. Well friends, if you have any questions, feel free to write to me at gcmgjmt@gmail.com, and within 48 hours I'll respond back to your queries or questions, or if you have any suggestions, anything, you can email me. If you would like to explore more, so further reading, as I told you, heritage.org, this is a good resource for you to keep throughout your life. Thank you very much. See you next time with lesson 3 of Unit 1. Bye for now.